Well, for the second consecutive season, the Ohio State Buckeyes are going into the offseason on a pretty disappointing loss. This year, though, maybe a little bit more of a sour taste than a year ago, because this was not a college football playoff appearance, and it was a game in which the Buckeyes never scored a touchdown offensively. Yes, they were missing Marvin Harrison Jr. because he opted not to play. No, they didn't have Tommy Eichenberg anchoring the defense, which, by the way, played fine against one of the better offenses in the country. But offensively, not even close to being good enough here this evening. And so, Anthony, the question that I think a lot of Ohio State fans are wrestling with right now is, where do we go from here? And let's address the level of concern right now as you go into the offseason, where you are with the program and the decisions that need to be made, and the areas of frustration that, I think under a magnifying glass, once again tonight, proved to be problematic.
Yeah, I think at a macro level, looking at the big picture, going from year to year, right? You said this is our second year in a row coming into the offseason off a disappointing loss. Last year, you were in the college football playoff. And frankly, we were actually looking up some highlights earlier today. You're 10 minutes away. You're up 14 with 10 minutes to go in the game. You're right there on the cusp of what, in all honesty, was a national title game. You probably win the national championship and whatnot. So fast forward 365 days or whatever, fast forward a full year. Now you're not even in the college football playoff, and you're going into the offseason with a loss. So the trend line's going down, and that's not a place you want to be. It's tough to truthfully answer this question right now because, the game just ended, an hour and a half ago. So, the body's still warm, if you will. But, it's the panic button's out, man. And it is a tough situation right now for Ohio State because when you're looking at it, right, you're losing Marvin Harrison. You got a big question mark at the quarterback position, not because you don't think the guys can do it, but you don't know which guy is going to do it. Where the concern for me lies is the offensive line. Where are the answers going to come from the offensive line? Because it hasn't been good enough all year. You're able to get some wins in some games that you're able to come back on. Think back to Notre Dame, think back to Penn State, and in Michigan, it kind of comes back to bite you. But for me, I think the defensive side is going to be fine. I think you got a lot of great players on that side of the ball. But the biggest question mark for me is what's going to happen on that offensive line and who's going to be the signal caller in the backfield. And that's where, hey, your hand's hovering over that panic button right now.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm pounding that panic button, but you're right. I'm kind of like, this isn't good. And Ryan Day made it very clear, hey, not allowed to lose around here. This isn't good enough. This isn't even close to our standard. And even statistically speaking, by, what he considers to be, good performance offensively this year, even in their first 11 wins, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't Ryan Day's standard of offense, the excellence that they routinely achieve. He wants 500 yards of total offense a game, 300, 200. He expects 40-point performances routinely, and that didn't happen routinely. It happened a couple of times along the way, but not even close to regularly enough. And he also said, look, I'm not going to complain about winning games because the defense looks like the best defense in the country. A win's a win. We'll take it. But when you peel back the layers of the onion, and if the offense can't get it going like they couldn't tonight, and at times where they sputtered against Michigan, here we are in the same results, right? 11-2 as you were a year ago, albeit it feels a little bit different. You're trying to build a program that's going to win a national championship. And I mean, look, they're not that far away. Let's not be crazy here. The margins in this sport are finer than they've ever been. And with the expanded playoff next year, some people are talking about how things are going to be watered down. I totally disagree. Yeah. You're going to see teams. I mean, think about this Cotton Bowl game last year. Everybody said Tulane USC, it's going to be a clunker. That was one of the best bowl games all bowl season last year, right? I mean, you are going to get teams that nobody thinks are going to be national championship caliber teams that are going to get into the 12-team playoff next year, and they're going to make some noise. And Ohio State has to be ready to rock when they get to that point, because if if the Buckeyes are not a top 12 team next year in the country, that's a whole different level of I'm pounding the panic button. I'm not concerned about that. Yeah. But they've got some questions they need to answer in the offseason. And again, not going to call for certain people's jobs. I think that's unprofessional. But they need to make serious strides in a couple areas offensively and on special teams. I thought the defense overall tonight and throughout the course of the season looked really good.
Yeah, and I even think too, before you even get to talking about the 12-team playoff, the Big Ten is going to look a lot different. You know, what we've been accustomed to is respectfully like a bunch of games that are kind of tune-ups to Penn State, and then a handful of games that are tune-ups to Michigan. They're all conference games, but like going to Purdue and going to Indiana and going to Northwestern and inviting those Michigan State to your house, and those games haven't been challenging. And you know, whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent is a song for another time. But right now, when you're looking at it, welcome USC to the group, welcome Washington to the group, welcome Oregon to the group. Like the level of play in the Big Ten is going to increase significantly, and you better be ready to go. There's not going to be much room for error because there's going to be a lot of really good teams. We've seen it now. The skill is kind of spreading evenly throughout a bunch of top programs. And Ohio State, there's some serious question marks, in my opinion, on that offensive line and that quarterback position that, you know, are going to be concerning for this entire offseason.
And look, I mean, you've got two kids coming in, 4 total offensive linemen as true freshmen that are coming in, you know, 2 of whom are twin brothers, Deontay and Devontae Armstrong, coming in from St. Ed's in Cleveland, who are, you know, high school All-Americans. They are the real deal. Are they going to be ready to start as true freshmen next year if it gets pushed to that? I mean, starting true freshmen on the offensive line feels like a pretty aggressive tactic. I don't know that the answer is in a true freshman next year. So are you going back to the portal for offensive linemen, or do you need to see considerable improvement from the guys? I mean, go back and watch some of the plays in the early third quarter tonight. It'll make your eyes bleed. It was brutal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's pressure everywhere, and Lincoln even said it at the end. You know, Missouri was giving them a bunch of what was called zero looks, where they're just blitzing everybody and playing cover zero across the board, which means no safeties. It's man to man everywhere. That gives you numbers in the rush game because they were challenging him to make big throws and challenging the offensive line to protect as best they could. And we obviously saw the result. So, you know, like you said, for me, the panic button is on my desk. I'm not hitting it yet, but I'm looking at it. I'm maybe cleaning it off, dusting it off because it hasn't been out there for a while, but it's getting close because there's a lot of question marks on this Ohio State team.
A pretty restless night's sleep, I think, for the Ohio State coaching staff as they try to figure out where to go from here. And certainly Ryan Day is the one that has to make a lot of those decisions. He knows what he signed up for when he took this job, that's for sure. I think Ryan's made a lot of really, really good decisions during his tenure as the Ohio State head coach. But he's got a tough offseason coming up, that's for sure. For all the latest news and info on the Buckeyes, we got you covered here over on BuckeyesNow.com.